Well, for more on the Queen's life and times, we're joined now from London by Tony Travers, Director of the Institute of Public Affairs at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, Tony. So after 7 decades on the throne, Queen Elizabeth leaves behind a remarkable legacy. It's very hard to sum that up. We have been watching some of the images from those 70 years she spent on the throne. For you, what stands out? What defines her reign?
Well, I think, as you said, she's been a figure of enormous stability for the UK. Like all countries, good things and bad have happened over that long period. She became Queen, as you just heard, unexpectedly, really, because her father died so young. It was in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War. Britain, like other countries in Europe, was still feeling the impact of that. Everybody had to join the army or the navy or the air force, and there was still rationing in Britain. And through the whole of that period, anybody aged under about 73 or 74 will only have seen one head of state. And she was, without question, a figure of continuity and bringing a degree of stability and, I think, reassurance, frankly, at times, particularly at times when things went badly wrong, disasters. We've had, like all countries, very bad things happen from time to time, and the Queen would always go to these events. She'd turn up and reassure people, and it was from a genuine sense of duty on her part, but actually affection both ways, which I think is now playing out very visibly outside Buckingham Palace and elsewhere where the Queen has lived.
And why was she held in such a fond part of people's hearts, their memories? We've seen thousands of people turning out at Buckingham Palace, even though it was wet, it was dark last night. Just tell us what made her so special to the British public.
Well, I think as head of state, and of course, because the UK separates the job of head of government and head of state, she's the head of state, a constitutional monarch. She was a constitutional monarch, and Charles III will be the same. And in that role, if the job is done well, and it's a difficult job, actually, if you imagine it, because they are your head of government, but actually with remarkably few powers. You see the Prime Minister, the head of government, each week. And what you have then to do is to be seen really as a leader by what you do and how you speak. And I think she was exceptional at that. Even there are people in Britain who actually want a republic, but even they conceded that Elizabeth II perfectly embodied the concept of the constitutional monarch. This is something her father and grandfather, George VI and George V, had also done. And so I think it's that capacity as head of state to do the job and to appeal connected to millions of people when clearly you only meet a small proportion of them, but she has met a very large number of people. I think it's all of that and her sense of duty, which undoubtedly people understood fully.
That's something we've been hearing over and over again since she passed away on Thursday. Looking to the future for millions of people, she will, of course, be impossible to replace, but that task nevertheless falls to her son, Charles. How do you think he is prepared for what comes now? He's already king.
Well, I mean, he is prepared in the sense that in recent years he's been undertaking duties on behalf of the Queen, and he too has travelled the world. It's in a sense an element of the royal family's duty and their job, to be rather bluntly. And they do travel the world, meet world leaders, and Charles himself has had a very long time in this role as Prince of Wales, as heir to the throne. So it's not as if he's inexperienced, but because of the constitutional nature of this job, head of state in a hereditary monarchy, then he will have to establish his own relationship, I think, as king. I mean, he obviously had a relationship with Prince of Wales. He'll have to create his own relationship as king, and that will started yesterday, and will, from today onwards, become a new relationship between a new monarch, a new head of state, and people in Britain and the Commonwealth and in other countries, because the UK monarchy, obviously, our conversation here is suggesting, is understood by people well outside these shores.
And how will his reign differ to that of his mother's? We know for sure it's going to be shorter, but it could be equally as tumultuous. It's a difficult time in the UK at the moment. They've just had a new Prime Minister elected this week. Tell us some of the immediate challenges that Charles now faces.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is extraordinary that the UK has had a new head of government and a new head of state within just over 48 hours, and that is very unusual. So it's a period of instability, obviously, because of these facts alone, but also the new government under Liz Truss faces the energy crisis that all countries and all European countries face, but there are a number of domestic policy issues for the government. And I think the role for King Charles, and he is taking that name, the role for King Charles will, I think, be to follow his mother's example. And his mother's example, is a brilliant one to follow, of ensuring that he's seen to embody the nation and to be the head of state, but in a way that keeps his own views out of politics and out of the public eye. I mean, one of the things the Queen was brilliant at is we never ever knew what she thought about anything. It was an amazing thing to have done. He will have to do that. But he is going to have to be visible. He'll have to visit different parts of the UK, the Commonwealth and the world, and establish his own relationship, I think, with people. I think people in Britain and in other Commonwealth countries, and of course, it's worth adding that he, like the Queen, is head of state in a number of countries around the world, but we'll have to build that relationship in a different way to his mother, but I think learning from the affection in which she was undoubtedly felt.
We saw, though, last year Barbados had left the Commonwealth. So do you think that the future of the monarchy, the future of the Commonwealth, is it secure under Charles?
I think the future of the Commonwealth is secure. I'd be amazed if King Charles was not as devoted to the Commonwealth as his mother. And his mother was, without question, devoted to the Commonwealth. And I think as the years go by, we will see a debate. There'll be a debate in a number of Commonwealth countries, as there has been up till now. This is not going to stop. But some countries will effectively want to move on from having the king or queen previously as head of state and have their own head of state. But I think, and I've heard the former Prime Minister of New Zealand discussing this on the UK media this morning, I don't think for a while, that these things will happen, but I doubt they're particularly linked to it being King Charles rather than Queen Elizabeth. It's something to do with the dynamics of politics in Commonwealth, or those Commonwealth countries that have the UK monarch. Also, for them, they're the head of their own. They're the head of state for their own countries. But I think that there will be more discussions in the weeks and months ahead, but not instantly, not immediately. I think all the Commonwealth countries and their leaders will be sharing in this particular constitutional moment in the weeks and months ahead.
And Tony, how do you think Queen Elizabeth will be remembered?
Well, I think she will be remembered. I mean, Queen Victoria has been mentioned. Queen Victoria, who was queen from 1837 till 1901, another extraordinary long reign, was remembered with great affection when she died. And I think Elizabeth II will also be remembered. But also, having presided over the UK as head of state, an extraordinary period from effectively just after the Second World War. Winston Churchill was her first Prime Minister, remember, in 1952 to 1955. But through a period of extraordinary social and economic change in Britain, right the way through to today's, information-driven age, very, very different time. And I think she'll just be remembered partly for the longevity and the continuity, but the way in which she did her job well. All of us can do our jobs well and badly. There's no question she did her job well.
And right up until the very end. Tony, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate your time this morning. That's Tony Travers, Director of the Institute of Public Affairs at the London School of Economics. Thank you again.